If you tried to file a trademark on your own, you were probably confronted with two choices: TEAS Plus or TEAS Standard. So how do you know which one is right for you? Hi, my name is Ahad Syed, and I'm a trademark attorney, and this is a Syed Law Video Explainer. The key difference between TEAS Plus and TEAS Standard comes down to whether or not your goods and or services are within the Trademark ID Manual. If they are in the Trademark ID Manual, then you go with TEAS Plus. If on the other hand they are not, consider the TEAS Standard. Assuming you understand trademark basics and you completed a check search for your mark, choosing between TEAS Plus and TEAS Standard is the difference between a $100 fee, an office action refusal, or a potential rejection. Here I pull back the curtain and explain how using the Trademark ID Manual will help you decide. So here's a breakdown of what I'm going to be discussing today. 1. The difference between TEAS Plus versus TEAS Standard. 2. Searching the Trademark ID Manual. 3. Niche goods and services. 4. Why you should never use TEAS Standard to fit multiple classes into one class. 5. A brief summary. Let's begin with part 1. The difference between TEAS Plus and TEAS Standard. Simply put, TEAS stands for Trademark Electronic Application System. This is the United States Patent and Trademark Office's proprietary system to file a trademark, and they strongly encourage you to file it online versus filing it on paper. In fact, the USPTO will assess a penalty in the form of additional fees if you file by paper application. Now moving on, if you log in with your MyUSPTO account, you'll be confronted with two choices. If you started your trademark application, you likely came across those options, which are TEAS Plus versus TEAS Standard. TEAS Plus says, quote, I am filing a TEAS Plus application with a reduced fee of $250 per class of goods or services. On the other hand, the TEAS Standard option states, TEAS Standard, I'm filing a TEAS Standard application with a fee of $350 per class of goods or services. Now, the main difference between the TEAS Plus versus TEAS Standard comes down to whether or not your goods or services are in the Trademark ID Manual. If they are, then go ahead with the TEAS Plus option. If they are not in the Trademark ID Manual, consider the TEAS Standard instead. That'll allow you to use a custom description. As you can see, the TEAS Plus application costs $100 less than the Standard. It probably doesn't help that the USPTO confusingly calls the less expensive of the two options Plus, while the more expensive option is labeled Standard. Fortunately, there's an easy way to figure out which application is right for you, and that is to search the Trademark ID Manual for your goods and or services. Part 2, search the Trademark ID Manual. The Trademark ID Manual contains an encyclopedia of possible goods and services. When you pull up the Trademark ID Manual, look at the large field box under ID Master List. Now, type in what you intend to sell as a service or good in the field box. For example, if your business streams video podcast, you will receive 2 results if you type in, quote, entertainment podcast. Part 3, niche goods and or services. For many entries, the Trademark ID Manual will have a field called, quote, indicate field or subject matter. This will allow you to custom tailor a less expensive TEAS Plus form. However, if you are selling specific goods and or services and can't find your good or service, you should use a TEAS Standard option. This is also true if you are in a very niche industry, because not everything will be in the Trademark ID Manual. So the key difference between the two applications, the TEAS Plus and TEAS Standard, comes down essentially to whether or not your goods or services are accurately described in the Trademark ID Manual. However, you should make sure that the description really does describe your goods and or services. Note, however, that if you use an inaccurate description, you will receive an office action refusal. By the way, if you find this at all helpful, hit that like and subscribe button. That helps me make more trademark videos that could potentially answer more of your questions in the future. Summary. Let's say you've completed your review of the Trademark ID Manual. So, which application should you pick? If you can find an accurate description of your class for goods and services, use the TEAS Plus application. If, however, you cannot find an accurate description of your class of goods and services, consider the TEAS Standard application. Conclusion and recommendation. In conclusion, whether you use the TEAS Plus versus TEAS Standard for your application is pretty simple. Ask yourself the following question. If the Trademark ID Manual is used, does it accurately describe the goods and services you provide? If the answer is yes, then select the TEAS Plus application. If the Trademark ID Manual does not accurately describe the goods and services that you provide, then consider filing the TEAS Standard application, which allows you to insert a custom description. Finally, don't attempt to fool the USPTO by making a custom description that falls into multiple classes and by placing it into only one class. That just simply won't work. Please feel free to contact Syed Law, or you can get started right away with your application on my website. If you received an office action response or an incorrect application selection, we can also help. Thank you so much for watching this video. This is not legal advice, it is only informational, and I look forward to seeing you around.